If you can find Mandy, I'll just ask her to.
Welcome everyone. We're about to get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. We start in a couple minutes. Please have your seats. We're about to start. Brianna, Pierre-Georges. Thank you so much. Welcome to Queer Caribbean Voices. Okay. Welcome to Queer Caribbean Voices, Shaping Inclusive Spaces. Thank you so much. I want you to share with folks, for those of us who don't speak Haitian Creole, I know you're very intentional about the song. Just share a little bit about the song you selected.
Okay, hello everybody. So I chose this song because I heard the panel discussion, inclusive spaces. So I said, okay, let me look, search, and boom, I came across this song. Nous tous c'est nous. Basically meaning like we are all people, we are all one. In the song, it mentioned like my family take care of me, my sister take care of me, Haiti take care of me. You know, like we got each other. We're all one on this earth. So that's it. Thank you.
Help us all say what you said, the new.
Nous, tout, c'est,
That means we are one. Welcome. Thank you so much. One more applause for Brianna. Her first time performing with us. So happy to have you on the stage. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm G. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director and co-founder of BLINC, the nonprofit which stands for Black LGBTQ Liberation Inc. And we're in the Caribbean, Island Space Caribbean Music. So we want to big them up for inviting us to have this talk here. And really important. So let's make sure we acknowledge them. Let's give them a hand. Right? And since we're in the Caribbean Space, we have to say, one. Yeah. Sac passé. How's that? Get down. Someone told me one that's Dutch today. Let me see if I can get it. Fowaka. Anybody know if I even got that right? Okay, well, yes. So, any other Caribbean greetings? Any other? That is there? Okay, well, really glad to be here. And just say a little bit about BLINC before we get started. We started, myself and Nick Harris started an event 10 years ago called The Art Woman. And we started that because there weren't enough queer spaces for LGBTQ women and allies. And so it really ties close to the conversation we're having today. So after 10 years of doing the Art Woman events, well actually many years, we then started a nonprofit BLINC. And we're really excited that in addition to doing, and folks here, does everybody here know the Art Woman, the events that we do? Okay, half the audience. For those of you who don't know, we do art exhibitions, open mic performances, theater productions. So you can follow us at the Art Woman on Instagram. And now our nonprofit BLINC, BLINC, produces the Art Woman events. So we're really excited that we got to go from doing the art events, which we're still doing, and having really impactful conversations like we are today. I wanted to share also, we have a volunteer here today. I want to make sure to acknowledge her first time coming up to help us. She came online and reached out as Jerry in the back. Yes. And we also have Ashley, who started off as a volunteer, as a program consultant. But we got this invitation from Island Space Caribbean Museum to produce this event. I said to Ashley, let's talk about some ideas. And she's looking like, oh gosh, she don't embarrass me. But thank you very much. Ashley came up with the idea, and as a team we worked on this conversation. We thought it really important to have this conversation. So let's get started. We're really excited to have this panel. Thank you everybody for joining us. I know that for those of you who do come to queer events, LGBTQ events, you hardly cross 95, right? So thank you for crossing 441. Thank you for coming out west. Really happy you made it out here. We we got spoiled out west. Everything's out east. So we got spoiled out east. So glad you made it really important. I'll share that in March, we're going to have, starting in March, the open exhibition. So we're going to have art on this wall. That's going to be from our community. And we'll have programming from March through May. So get ready for that. You can save the date March 13th and you'll hear more about that. So we have 3 panelists today. I'm going to introduce each of them and they can come on up. We have Dr. Charlene Désir. Yes. Dr. Charlene Désir is a professor at Nova Southeastern University, a voodoo priestess and a psychologist who blends academic expertise with psycho-spiritual insight. She's the founder of TEN Global, which promotes empowerment among marginalized communities through spiritual liberation. As Vice President of COSAMBA, she advances scholarly research on Haitian voodoo and healing. Dr. Désir is also a leader in mental health advocacy, playing key roles in the Haitian Mental Health Think Tank and the Black Androgynous Genius Project, both of which focus on supporting Black marginalized communities. Her work emphasizes holistic well-being, empowerment, and liberation. So good to have you, Dr. Désir. Then we have Kishi. Come on up, Kishi. Kishi is a dedicated advocate for human rights, mental wellness, and the performing arts. His community work began at age 5 with local sickle cell organizations, and he stayed active in his school years through chorus, student council, and Miami Carnival. For the past 16 years, he has supported LGBTQ plus organizations in South Florida. Currently, Kishi works in security and event staffing across the region and continues to give back to co-producing Unity Coalition docu-series and developing a mental health initiative for Shaq's Hope, a sickle cell awareness foundation. And do we have a link for the program booklet? Is that QR code? Because there's a program booklet where you can read more about everybody and that you can also follow him on Instagram and social media. Finally, Jonielle McIntosh. Jonielle flew from Jamaica yesterday, so we have to give her a special welcome. Come on up. Jonielle is the founder and creative director of Freeform Jamaica, a pride Jamaica performing arts showcase for LGBTQ women and non-binary people. A dedicated advocate for LGBTQ women's rights and marginalized communities, she's also a senior economic institution, analyzing the credit market and contributing to monetary policy. In addition to her professional work, Jonielle is an active member of the Jamaica Youth Chorale, blending her love for music with the commitment to social justice. She exemplifies how diverse passions can drive positive change. Let's welcome our panelists one more time. So we'll jump right in. So I just read your bios and give you the opportunity to do a self-intro, sharing anything else you'd like to share, and also starting off with what inspired you to do this LGBTQ advocacy work. Hold on, I know there's a mic for each person, but we'll start off with you right here. At some point, everybody will get a mic. Okay. I'll start with you, Dr. Désir.
Okay. Ordinary respect. I honor you and let us exchange respect. I came from a very strict Haitian family. Oftentimes we ask who's the most homophobic, the Jamaicans or the Haitians. But I came out when I was 18. When I was asked, "Who are you?" In college, and I gave an answer that came out of my mouth, out of my being. And until this day, it was trying to really understand that identity not only within my own being, but within the communities that I see. And so I think part of me, I got my doctorate from Harvard, and part of my research work was for the liberation of children and all children. So I dedicated my own experience in doing presentations, in writing. I just wrote 2 articles on LGBTQ Caribbean folk and things that we need. I'm a psychologist by training, and I started the Androgynous Genius Project, which is a support for Caribbean youth. So I think for me, having had those moments of shame and family members, colleagues question my love of women, it was an impetus that I think that I was called by Creator and my ancestors to represent all those who seek liberation.
Good evening. My name is McIntosh. I'm from Jamaica. I primarily work as an economic statistician, but I think how I found advocacy, it started with women's work, and from very young, I could see the systems of patriarchy and how it impacted people, and so I was intentional about finding other people who were interested in the work of advocating for women's rights. And through that work, I found the LGBTQ organization, which is now called JFLAG, formerly JFLAG, now Policy for All, JA. Volunteering with them, as well as, We Change, which is the women's organization there. And then from that, coming out of the pandemic, I realized that a lot of queer people lost their community because a lot of the art spaces is where queer people in Jamaica especially found their community, found solace. And so I wanted to create such a space for them, and that's how Freeform came about. And it was important to me that I platform artists to give them a space where their art can be whatever it is that they want it to be, because a lot of artists in Jamaica have to kind of sanitize their work in order to make it marketable, in order to keep space in the artistic community, even though, funny enough, it's for people that really do the art in most countries, but it's important to give them that space where they can freely express all that is them and their identities and incorporate that in their art, and that's kind of where a lot of my passion comes from.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Kishi, and really important. My mom is here.
Yes.
She is from Kingston, Jamaica. So big up Jamaica. And for me, advocacy and all of these things have always been a part of my life. Obviously, being the child of immigrants, I've always empathized, and the cause and the rights of immigrants have always been very important to me, because I always knew, for instance, when my mom wasn't a citizen, I knew the obstacles that she faced as a child who was experiencing verbal and physical abuse in public schools. I never understood oppression, and I always felt equal to everyone, even when people told me I wasn't equal. Having a sister living with sickle cell anemia was rough. Seeing her constantly be hospitalized every year and losing her, unfortunately, 8 years ago. Understanding the medical system is broken, and that people with certain illnesses are treated differently, because if you can't see the illness, a lot of people don't understand it, and they actually deny that it's even real. They deny that your pain is real. And having grandparents with disabilities was also something that made me realize not everyone has the same, the playing field isn't leveled in this world. And there are people with physical disabilities that have issues navigating this world, and it's not as inclusive as they try to tell us it is. So seeing all of these different things growing up, I realized that it was important for me to use my voice, and I used my voice through student council, through chorus, through theater. I went to theater camp, and it changed my life. And just being put in platforms and being put in positions where people always listen to me, always really made me feel, okay, maybe my voice matters. And I found this community here in South Florida in 2008 when I got a ticket and I needed to do some service hours. And I started doing it at what was then the GLCC. It became the Pride Center. And I started volunteering with every organization in Broward and Miami. And it led to numerous opportunities, like getting to protest with Planned Parenthood in DC, and protesting against the Republican National Convention in 2012 in Tampa, helping instill policies around human sexuality in public schools. I've got to do a lot, and I'm grateful for this journey.
Thank you all. And, as you mentioned your mom, I do want to share that for folks who don't know, I was in a heterosexual marriage with David Muir, who's actually a co-worker. Right? David. So I just want to speak to the power of seeing you here, and she saw me with my husband and being in that traditional culture on it, and to see you here in this space and to be accepting is very powerful. So people like Andrew, and having something here is so important because it creates a space where other folks who may not come to our events are here. So I'm sure you will come, but it's this is a space that you come to all the time, so it makes it more like, and then your son's on stage. So, but really, in terms of my journey, a part of why I didn't want to come up was the fear of what people thought, was homophobia. So I got to the point where I felt like it doesn't matter what people think, but it still doesn't matter what people are accepting. I don't care what people are not accepting, but what people are accepting is really powerful. So I'm really thankful for that. So let's talk a little bit about what does an inclusive space look like in the community you serve. So for you, Dr. Désir, what does that look like or feel like with the folks you serve?
Well, I think one of the beautiful things about the United States is that we reflect the spectrum, and that should be everyone. So I think in my space, in my family, I have people of different colors, people of different religious orientations. I want my family to reflect my larger family. So I enter spaces to disrupt. Because I will come in spaces to disrupt, because it is my God-given right to be in existence and to be with others in existence. As a Haitian person, our whole ethos is liberation. It's not liberation for some, it's liberation for all. So I seek the dream that I imagine for myself. So I think that inclusive space is that everyone, with whatever it is that they reflect. I mean, I get uncomfortable when we have such segregated spaces. It doesn't feel normal or natural to me. So I think but I have particular groups that even within the Haitian groups I'm in, the Caribbean groups I'm in, there has to be diversity within. And I think the fact if we only have one monolithic understanding, that we are not the image that God created us to be. So I think inclusivity is not only a physical representation, it is a psychological representation, it's a spiritual representation. And as a priestess, the spirituality that exists with us reminds us that we all come with an intelligence, a vibration of knowing and understanding. And that vibration is to make song with everyone that has been existing in our time frame right now. Whether we agree or not, we are here to make music. And let us again understand the heartbeat. Our heartbeat is the very drum that aligns us together. So I think inclusivity is seeing the humanity in everyone.
You want to go next to that?
So the work that I do tends to focus on LGBTQ women, non-binary people, just non-men, and that can be controversial for a lot of reasons, but I think when I create space, I think about safety first, because I live in a country, unfortunately, where homophobia is kind of stitched into the culture. We inherited it, and I think it's important to sort of make sure first that the space is safe, and safe spaces inadvertently become inclusive because everybody feels welcome, everybody feels safe. And for me, what I've noticed in the work that I do, you need to be deliberate about creating spaces for women and non-men. It's not to be exclusionary, but those spaces don't just occur naturally. And I'm sure that's why the word women came about,
Yes.
right? So, the assumption is that, we're all fighting for LGBT, and somewhere in the mix of all of that, like, the women will be sorted, but there are issues if you aren't deliberate about making their voices heard and addressing some of those issues, they don't ever get to the forefront of the discussions. You have to provide spaces for that, in the midst of providing space for everybody. And I'll tell you what, one of the things is living in Jamaica, spaces that are catering for women tend to be safe spaces for the LGBTQ people, because women tend to be the safe space for everybody. And we see that with things like soca. Soca, I'm not trained, but what the landscape looks like in Jamaica is that it caters a lot to women. It is women's focus. Soca is woman, carnival is woman. You understand? So you will find that in a soca space that even though it's not explicitly said that this is a queer friendly space, you find that a lot of queer people flock to those spaces because they feel accepted in that space, because it's less about othering people, it's more about having fun, it's a liberation, it's a very liberating experience. And when you think about, the beginnings of carnival, it makes sense that queer people would find solace in spaces like that. But as I said, we have to be intentional about being safe and what that looks like. And sometimes that means that you need to surround people with people who are safe. You understand? And be safe people ourselves. Because a lot of people don't think about that part. We think about, okay, yes, I'm going to organize this group and we're going to get all these people to come, but we haven't addressed our own healing work and how we interact with people and how we move through the world. And so we don't realize that we're not safe people for the people in the community, that the people that we're trying to form a community with. So that is kind of where I operate from. Make it safe and then it can be inclusive.
Definitely. And definitely relate in terms of when we started Our Woman. They have in South Florida Wilton Manors, which they call the neighborhood, but when we go to the neighborhood, it's mostly older white men, or men, but mostly older white men. So realizing this is not really our space, so that led us to create a space for women. Similarly with art, is a place where you can be yourself, whether it's poetry or painting and so on. I also wanted, since we have you here from Jamaica, to share. You said something when we were planning, you couldn't have what we're having right here in Jamaica.
I wouldn't say that. It just takes a little bit more to get there. What we're seeing now is, unfortunately, an increase in anti-LGBT sentiments, and it's observable from, I want to say, 2016. We are coming from a place where we used to be able to collaborate with a lot of corporations, even though we can't, put their name on anything queer, but they used to give funding and allow for spaces. We all see spaces for activities and events. And last Pride was the first time we've had a situation where we were scrambling to find venues that would accommodate anything queer.
So are people literally, companies literally saying, we will not do it because it's going to be a queer event? Is that?
No, so a lot of the events are done through, so how I got to, host my event is I used the name Freeform. I didn't use JFAG, which is what everybody else knows as being, the queer organization. And that is how we got the venue. When they asked for the venue, it was so that it wasn't available. You understand?
So it's more subtle.
So nobody's going to explicitly say it, but you know, we've seen like over time how the landscape has changed. You know, bigotry has been emboldened, unfortunately, and it's so sad because I remember my first pride. We were in a place called Hope Zoo. We had a breakfast party, and it was the first time Jamaica was like, it was one of the first prides that they really had and were open about, like advertising it and that sort of thing. And I remember it was raining, but we really didn't care. We're just happy to have a space that we could all be together and like we didn't have to wash our back. So coming from that to what we're seeing now, it's a little bit heartbreaking. So I wouldn't say it's impossible to hold a panel like this in Jamaica. It just takes a lot more work than it used to.
So for you, Kishi, I would say Kishi, is Kishi more?
Either one is correct.
Okay, cool. What does inclusive space look like to you and to you, sir?
So first, I want to acknowledge the work that women and non-men do and how important. Oh, I see you. We went to school together. Good to see you. It's important as a cisgender male for me, first of all, to acknowledge my privilege whenever I go into a space and acknowledge that while I may personally not have created harm to women, acknowledging the harm in society that men have created to women over time, and also acknowledging all of the wonderful women, including my mother, who have helped raise me. It's very important for me to acknowledge the contributions that women have made to my life and just in society in general. I think that's really important. And why these spaces are needed, it's not for me to take offense or take personally. Also, I think when we talk about inclusivity, we have to acknowledge a lot of the disadvantages and making sure that we're bridging those gaps. Because, for instance, if somebody can come into a space and they're not able to fully access it, meaning they're not able-bodied, that's an issue, right? If somebody comes into a space and they can't have a meal because it does not align with their dietary restriction or their allergies, that's an issue. If somebody cannot come in based on their skin color, based on their socioeconomic status, or their appearance, that's an issue. So I think intentionally acknowledging all of the obstacles that may occur, and also checking ourselves, like again, acknowledging what privileges we may have as an individual, that will help, and also understanding that we all have a responsibility to ourselves, but to each other. I think that's really important because, it would be fine to say come as you are in an inclusive space, but I think we have to also be aware of what we may bring to the table when we come to ourselves in these spaces. And I think a lot of people feel, oh, well, because of my religion, I can say what I want, and because of what life has afforded me, I can say what I want, but that kind of dismantles the whole purpose of a safe space or of an inclusive space. So I think it's very expansive and nuanced conversation, but I think there's so much room to explore what really makes a space truly inclusive. But I think setting the groundwork, setting the intention, and having ground rules and having standards is a great place to start, but there's always so many different angles in which you could look at what would truly make a space inclusive.
Thank you, and thanks for acknowledging that privilege as well, and all the women who helped raise you. Can we get some water up here, Island States? We have the Caribbean weather up there, so yes, thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about, so we have a psychologist, and I know, Keisha, you also work in mental health. Let's talk a little bit about how important these spaces are to our mental health, and what happens to us when we don't have these spaces.
Well, I mean, I think at this time right now, like it's important to have space. It's important to have community. You know, I think that, you know, our community in general is what we call resilient, right? But now we are really at a reset again. We're at reset. And in that reset time, I want us to have the ideology to restore. We have to restore ourselves and really think back, because you are the most important person in your life. And how are we going to be a model for others? Like all of you came this evening, or those that are watching. So how are you going to restore yourself in the times that we're in as a model for yourself and for others? So I mean, I think that it's very important for us to think about this as a community. 2 years ago, the American Psychological Association admitted that this practice is not for the benefit of Black people.
Finally, they spoke some truth.
They said. So, and we can imagine for queer folks as well that are in our families, in our communities. And so, for me, as you know, I was trained as a school psychologist, and for me, I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Black psychology. What does Black psychology say? The Association of Black Psychologists refused the apology. They said, we don't accept your apology. You need to change your practice. We need to have folks like us educating people. And so I had the humility to be trained by Baba Wade Noble, one of the founders of Black psychology. Black psychology was founded in 1968. And one of the fundamental premises is that we are not humans having these disassociated experiences. We are spirit. As folks of African tradition, we are spirit first. And we don't have mental illness, we have spirit damage.
Discernment.
You know, as the brother said, discernment, we're forgetting that we are spirit first. And in that knowing, you know, of course, our community, the queer community, we are spirit. And that's why a lot of people may have a lot of things to say about Vodou, but Vodou also recognizes spirit. It's the only safe space, really, in the Haitian tradition. And so I think it's important for us to think about that and sit with that. Because there's going to be a lot of environmental things happening to us. There's going to be a lot of things being said. We are traumatized more than any other group. But if we, regardless of your religious beliefs, if you understand that a breath was put into you, and you are spirit first, and some of the things that you are experiencing and the denial of who you are is based on the attack on your spirit. You know, there's the, African American traditions, you can touch my body, but you can't touch my soul. You can't touch my soul. You can't damage my soul. So we have to, as a community, go a little bit deeper. And one of the things, and I can be critical too, one of the things is you can't expect another person to treat you better than you will treat yourself. And that's the first part of mental wellness. How do you recognize and treat yourself? If you are doing damage to yourself, how can you look at someone and not acknowledge that they're reflecting the thing that you're doing to you to back action? We exist as a reflection of how we see ourselves in the universe. So we have to think about these things. And for me, I actually do presentations and I have written papers on queer intelligence. We have been created in a way that other people don't process like us. They don't process like us. We don't recognize our magic. We were created this particular kind of way because our understanding is different from other people that don't have the vibration to have this inclusivity and interconnection within us. We are divinity. So we have to begin to process in that way as a healing modality. And we have an intelligence that was given to us because we are able to hold binary, non-binary, inclusivity, women loving, men loving, trans being, because we know something and understand something and feel something that others don't feel. So our spirit is intact. And we have to first look in that mirror and recognize you are spirit. You are the most important person that exists. But we also have to understand the reflection of what we see. If it is not positive, the other person will see you in the vibration that you have created for yourself. So, and I do work around this. I do therapy around this. My work is not about, I'm not gonna, and yes, we all have some psychiatric issues. So there comes a point when you have to take medication because your brain chemistry has changed. And then, but you could go back and understand that your healing is grounded in your understanding of self-love.
Your healing is grounded in your self-love. Always say it together. My healing is grounded in my self-love. Yes.
Okay, how do I follow that?
We build love together.
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
I appreciate where you are in the society. I'm sure many of you are hearing the terms mental health, mental illness a lot. And for me, it's important to draw inspiration from my own experiences. And that's what's really motivated me to help others. I was just writing down notes so I don't lose anything. Because what you said was really powerful and insightful, and I thank you. I thank both of you. But I had to look within and look at my own experiences as it pertains to mental health. In childhood, my mother actually encouraged my family and I to go into family counseling. So to have a Caribbean mother encouraging young kids to take care of their mental health was absolutely helpful. At the age of 18, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and OCD. Most of it due to my experiences with abuse in school. The day my sister passed away, I actually had a therapy session scheduled, and I still went. I brought pictures of her, and as difficult as it was, I got through that session, and I'm glad I did. And even more recently, election day, that just passed. So one of my jobs has a 24-hour call line, a line you can call and speak with a counselor, speak with a therapist. Not only was I disappointed with the results of the election, I was also disappointed that it turns out 89 million Americans that are registered to vote did not vote in this election. But a friend of mine also passed away from cancer that night. And I was feeling grief, disappointment, outrage, sorrow, all at once. And 3 a.m. in the morning in my bed, in the dark, after leaving an election party with my friends, I was crying. And I was angry. And I just remember saying, I do not feel accepted in this country. I feel like this country is no longer a place that's safe for us. Right, thank you. And I don't know whether I should be crying the loss of democracy or the loss of my friend. And I kept going back and forth between the two. But it was having that professional help in that moment that really made me feel better. Because I know a lot of times we often look at our friends and family as our source of support, and we should. But sometimes our friends and our family they only know what they know, and they're not always professionals unless they're licensed, right? So even in their well wishes and in their well intentions, they may want to give you advice and they may want to be there for you, but sometimes our friends and family don't always know what to say or do in moments when we really need some objective, unbiased, well-rounded views that can help us, that they don't always allow us to sit in our stuff and then allow us to kind of narrate where we want to go from there. A lot of times it is kind of, okay, I'll listen to you then, and then you're going to get over it. And then I don't want to hear about it the next week or the next month. But I feel like that's why there is sometimes, many times, it's important to have that professional because they don't have that attachment to you, but they also have a job to do. And you need a skilled professional sometimes to guide you and to be there for you. And they don't have that personal connection to you because maybe it can give you a different perspective and you're able to look at things from a different point of view. And I'm grateful for the field of psychology. I'm grateful for what professionals have done. I'm also aware of the harm that they have done, right? And what harm has been done in the name of psychiatry. I'm well aware of, especially being LGBT people, I know, especially in this country, and well, really any country, because homophobia is not just a Caribbean thing, it's a global thing. It's in every country, every culture, every religion, it's everywhere. It's literally, the world is inherently homophobic and anti-LGBT. And we're just literally doing the best we can to make strides. And even when elections like this happen, it doesn't mean that we won't prevail and win, but in moments like this, we need to understand how the discourse, the public discourse can be very emotionally and mentally draining. I know this whole election cycle, it has been triggering a lot of PTSD, a lot of anxiety, the language is terrible, and I feel like it's so important for us as a community to not only take a step back and get some rest, but we really need to look into mentally how we can lean into our strength, our mental strength. And if there are any places that we are lacking in, to fill that and recharge it, because the mind is literally the centerpiece and the nucleus of our being. And we deserve to have a healthy mind. We deserve to have a healthy functioning mind. Even if you're just cute and you think you're healthy, if the mind isn't right, I'm telling you, like you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. The mind is everything, and I'm just grateful to have all of the resources I have.
Before you jump in, Jonielle, I just want to acknowledge that many, if not most of us, are very traumatized after that election. And as we talk about self-love, one is make sure that everybody's practicing self-care. And it looks like self-care looks like different things for different people. For many people, you need to turn off CNN. Straight up. Tune out of the things that those things are harming you. So there's other ways to get the news. You can read the news. You can find publications that are not biased necessarily, but with the news on television, you're getting someone's tone, intonations, their opinions, so many things that are coming at you. I know people who specifically have told me like they feel like they can't stop watching it, but it's harming them if they're watching it. So if you're one of those people, it's okay, turn it off. Okay, listen to some music, right? So really want to share that. And you know, for our organization, BLINC, we're always working on building community like we are here today. And we really are even, we look at something like that, what's happening, that's trying to divide us and discriminate against us, and we're like, we are going to continue doing work like this. But even more so, like I said earlier for folks of this, we're going to have an event here March through May. So we're going to be having multiple events right here and throughout the year to bring us together in different ways. So let me let you jump in. I don't want to go more into the election, but I'm really serious about self-care, and if anybody wants to share about maybe before we end any other ideas for self-care would be helpful too. Jonielle.
Yeah, I know the assumption is that like I'm in Jamaica and I feel it's gonna feel like I'm far removed from what's happening in the election. We're not. We all were sitting, looking at those results, hoping for the best because we know what it looks like the first time around. And there is so much harm that they're planning to do. And knowing that as a small island developing country, we are so the US is one of our largest trading partners. And it's not just trade of goods and services, we also consume a lot of US content. And so that kind of indoctrination that happens on like certain news stations, it filters into our own communities there. which is why I can say, like, I have observed an increase in anti-LGBT sentiment, because it was almost like when he won that first time, people felt bold.
Yes.
They felt bolder in their bigotry. So I do hold space for that, because I know how it's going to impact other countries as well. We were all heartbroken, and I know you guys are going to experience it firsthand, but I just want to hold space for that and see you and acknowledge that, you know, you're gonna have a tough time, but we're still holding on to hope, and that the work doesn't stop just because, you know, the election wasn't what we wanted it to be. But on the issue of mental health, I think it's so important for people that exist on the margins of society to have community, because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that is where a lot of our psychosocial needs are met. If anybody's ever been to therapy, or had, you know, to engage in any of the mental health professionals, one of the first things they'll ask you is, what does your support system look like? And for a lot of queer people, you are stuck looking at this care provider like, I can't talk to my family. My friends are straight, so they don't really understand the fullness of what I experienced. So when you are able to, you have to. So like for me, I know college was a very isolating experience, because my entire flat, and this was so many women, so homophobic. And I had to live there for 3 years doing my undergrad degree, and I sat in my dorm room so many times thinking like, where are the queer people? I feel like I've been shut out of queer club. Where's my community? Where are people that like know what I'm going through, that feel what I'm going through, that understand it? You know, so when we talk about like creating space, I need us to understand how important it is for a lot of people. It is for a lot of people the difference between being here today and not tomorrow. And you know, I'm sure you know, we experience anxiety and depression and mental illnesses at a very disproportionate rate to our straight counterparts. So when you think about that, having people that know the struggle, have been through it, to stand by you, to help you up when you can't help yourself, to create those networks of, you know, mutual aid and support. It is so important. We can't stress enough how important it is. And I'll tell you, when I realized how important it was during the pandemic. We were cut off from all of the social interactions. Jamaica had like some very strict lockdowns. You get 2 days out of the week to grab your supplies from the grocery, get back home. You know, you might go into office one day and it's right back to being on the lockdown. And so a lot of people lost out on the spaces that gave them some reprieve from their everyday, you know, because we interact, as queer people, we interact with so many systems that are oppressive. And if you're a woman, it's another layer on top of that. And we don't realize how much it weighs on us. Because when you read the news, as you say, like for me, every time we see any kind of, because what's very prevalent in Jamaica is femicide. There's a lot of gender-based violence that happens there. And to see that in the news and have no one to say, to, I just need to look at you and you know what it is that I'm feeling. A lot of people don't have access to that. So we have to continue, as hard as it is and as demotivated that as you know, a lot of advocates might feel. I see you, I hear that, but if you can find just a little bit of strength to keep going, you're gonna keep a lot more people going.
So we're going to open it up to you all here. Thoughts, comments, questions for the panelists. Also want to make sure that we're here together to bring into the conversation what can we do moving forward. We're excited to be here at Island Swiss Caribbean Museum. We need more of this here, but other places as well. Typically, LGBTQ folks, we have most of our events in LGBTQ spaces, right? We need those spaces. We also need these allies, spaces that build allyship. So let me jump into the audience, hold on, and see, anybody have a question for one of the panelists? Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm really, really thankful for the conversation. I love this space because there's always something interesting occurring. I'm a mom of a child who, a young woman, now identifies very clearly with becoming. And as such, is imperative that I, as a mom, find ways to be supportive. And in our Caribbean community, that's historically not existed. Therefore, I'd like to find out when are we going to do something more in the context as parents, as guardians, to support our children, our young adults, everybody. And so I started by questioning, wanting to know, where do young people move forward in their support in terms of institutions? I need to know, are there Caribbean organizations that I can have my child access? I want to know, are there parent groups? Can we start some? I'm more than happy to be part of that. I want to go to Jamaica next week for Thanksgiving. My child is a trans woman. Where can we feel safe in Jamaica?
Thank you so much for that question. That is so important, and I love that we have parents in the audience here. That is so important that you are doing the work yourself to support your children. We do have a trans organization in Jamaica that work with a lot of the trans youth there. We also have created resources on our websites to give you an idea of where you can find mental health services, who are your friendly providers. We do actually have training sessions for parents and educators and so on. Those resources are there. In terms of being safe, I would say, I don't want to say that, Jamaica is a very unsafe space. Like, the fact that I'm able to go on a boat, I know that is a privilege, but then it is understanding that it's only some spaces that allow for that. So I'd say tap into that. After this, we can talk, and I can give you a whole rundown of where, how, what, because we do have trans people in Jamaica. We do. We have a large community of trans women and trans men in Jamaica, and navigating Jamaica is it's knowledge. So when I talked about that network that you get through communities, that's what I mean. It's knowing other trans people, other queer people that can say to you, hey, I visited this place and I had a good experience. I can refer this as a safe space. So that's kind of how a lot of queer people navigate Jamaica. And we're hoping to improve, but that's where we are now.
Well, I think it's also to have schools be accountable, because Because I'm a school psychologist, I was contacted as a professor because they know the work that I do for a trans Haitian woman that was kicked out of her house her senior year in high school. And so we have gone through a journey for the last 7 years, and it's a commitment. I think, when you commit to a child that's not straight and knowing the process that they will go to, as a support person, it's for a while. And now, she's a nurse, and it has taken a while from homelessness and all of this thing. And in my experience with her in the first 2 years, I started the Black Androgynous Genius Project. And so, for me, this work is around identity integration for queer adults, 18 plus. Because I really think, at that stage, they are very understanding that they're now an adult. So I do a lot of work with particularly Caribbean young folks, 18 plus, around identity integration and what that means and how do you become comfortable in your identity and where do you want to go. And it's therapy through an educated lens. So I know that's something that I have committed to, that I've been doing for the last 2 years. And thank you for including the parents, because I left that out. But I think that we should, talk to BLINC, the museum, about doing, because it's a beautiful thing for parent support. You can bring my money to it.
Yeah. We definitely want to get your information, because we'll see BLINC, if we can support. Also, SunServe is an organization based in Guatemala that does mental health services. They have youth groups. In terms of being solely Caribbean, no, but it's a start. But we're definitely interested if we can support that.
Also, just want to acknowledge, yesterday was Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Yes.
Just want to put that out there. Rest in peace to all of our trans brothers and sisters that are no longer here with us.
Thank you for that. I also want to add, so I go to Jamaica, as I said a couple of days ago. I'm a gender non-conforming woman. And so, like your child, I lived in Jamaica, but now I'm more like a tourist. So I would say, I feel safe in those spaces. So I know if I'm at the hotel or at the restaurants, I'm pretty okay. But then as you go in other places, then don't hold my hand, girlfriend. So it's so just to navigate. And that's my experience as someone who visits Jamaica, mostly masculine presenting.
Hello, my name is Martine. I have an account called Careers of Miami, and initially when I began working in my practice, I graduated in 2020. I wanted to continue focus with queer studies and understanding why is art and drag so healing for our community. So a group that I'm going to Serendipity, I'm doing a life skills group. The times are on Thursday. And this group is for 18 to 28-year-olds to learn about developmental skills, how to build boundaries, how to get community, because like you mentioned, that's the only way to build connection is by giving these individuals, these young folks, the space to talk amongst themselves, to gather ideas. I learn new terms every single week with the clients I serve, and I feel so privileged to be able to learn every single day about art, about drag, about what not to say, what to say, how to build boundaries with my clients, and it takes a lot of apologizing to myself for not even just learning about Ivan space today. I'm so happy I got the opportunity to see the work here. So thank you so much.
And what's your space? How do we find you?
Serendipity Counseling.
Serendipity Counseling.
A life skills group.
Life skills group. Thanks for sharing. Is it Jose?
Jose.
Okay, thank you. We have a question back here.
First question is, let's raise some two short questions. Oh, it's still not. Okay. So the first question is, talk about mental health, which is very important. You guys said it's great, but so if you can't afford to get that, if you can't afford mental health, you guys get 3 tips
mental health resources for people who are lacking in funds.
Okay, so for about 8 years, I worked for a nonprofit organization called Care Resource. They're a community-based organization, and one of the compartments is affordable dental, medical, and behavioral health services. So whether you have limited income or no income, there are sliding scales essentially that you would be able to, based on your income, you would be able to see a therapist. Also, SunServe as well has a program where you see for a number of sessions free or reduced rates of like maybe 12 sessions, I believe, seeing a counselor or therapist.
Okay, does someone want to address the concern of a issue of a parent who has shame or disappointment?
Well, I think I came out to my mother about 11 times. But I was in a long-term relationship with a woman, and then she, over time, learned to say, okay, this is what you're doing as an adult. So that's why it's a beautiful thing to have parents that are supportive. My father, on the other hand, he was like, okay, what's she doing? So I think it's a process, and I don't believe in like parents and family members being violent and being cruel, but there's also a process that they have to go through as well. Sometimes it's almost a grieving process of a dream that they had, for their child. So I'm not trying to say to give them a pass, but but it's to have an understanding that they are also going through a process. And we all have families of choice, and I think they are as powerful. And so with a young person who has been completely isolated from family altogether, that is devastating. And I think we should, for parents who are accepting and for friends who are accepting, that we recreate family and we support them. Like Thanksgiving is coming, Christmas coming. Most of the suicides happen during the holiday season. So I think, as you sit here, claim somebody, claim somebody, so that they can be part of your continued community. I know that there's a lot of spaces to go through, but it's a process. And I think other parents can speak with other parents. Believe it or not, my mother has spoken to other parents, and then she goes, and then they go in and out of acceptance. Like, she'll be really accepting, and then she's like, well, you could have. So I think, like, if the parents are not being completely violent, emotionally violent, that there's ways to, like, teach us at our different stages, because that we have different genetics, we have all these different groups that will approach it in a particular kind of way, and maybe you can find somebody even within your family structure. Like, I have one aunt, it was problematic. Every time I came with a friend, a female friend, she's like, oh, my niece. I'm like, what? But she was trying to be supportive in her own kind of way. And then, but I think that we also have to educate our parents a little bit. But bottom line, I think we have to claim our family too.
Yeah, we're going to take one more question. Then we have a prompt for the audience, and y'all should have notebooks and a little pen that you could respond to, make it more interactive. But also, just want to touch base with the parents. I feel lots of times, and you alluded to this, is like sometimes, lots of times, there might be an instant disappointment, also just need time to understand what's happening. And a lot of times parents will come around. Most parents love their children, and if that's who their child. But this takes time. Unfortunately, some parents who will never come around, but many will come around, right? So we have one more question here. You have a question or comment?
Thank you guys so much for doing this and for making this space. It's really meaningful. As a couple of you have mentioned, the Caribbean islands are notoriously and almost uniformly homophobic. Do you, as activists in this community and space, envision a Caribbean that is more open and accepting? And if you are able to envision that, what are some steps that you think that we as the broader community and allies can take to tangibly start reaching that imagined acceptance?
Of course, I dream about a day when I can get up and go anywhere in Jamaica, hand in hand with my girlfriend, and have no issues. I do think we're some ways away from that, but what I have noticed and what I'm thankful for is that a lot of individuals are creating their own spaces in different corners. So it's not so much like the organizations anymore, but it's like individual people that are creating their own spaces and inviting people, to find family, to make connections there. So I think if you want to take steps to helping us create, an ideal world in the Caribbean, it's going to look like collaborating with a lot of the organizations there, or just the people there. You guys are further along in terms of the advocacy work, so capacity building. What kind of conversations were you having with your politicians? What moved the needle for you, and how can we apply that here? Which is a little bit difficult, and you guys, I know things are rough right now, but like one of the privileges America has is that you can lobby your government to change a law, and sometimes they'll give you something. What happens in a lot of Caribbean countries is that we have a thing called the savings clause, which prohibits lawmakers from prosecuting under certain laws that were established before independence. So that is what we're battling with in terms of making or creating a legal structure that is inclusive and accommodating for Caribbean people. A lot of the anti-LGBT laws are protected under the savings clause. We're currently going through constitutional reform. So it would be helpful, I know there are probably academics in the room and other advocates, for you to reach out to some of these organizations. The help is never enough, because a lot of these organizations rely on help from the diaspora. Like if you have heritage in Jamaica, Haiti, Trinidad, or whatever, and you feel like you're in a position to reach out to some of these organizations and find out how you can help. Because I'll tell you, I've seen instances where groups have reached out and made connections with other people in the diaspora, and that has been an integral part of sustaining that space. They come and they teach classes, help them host events, set up support groups and so on in the Caribbean to help with that sort of thing. So it's a lot of collaboration, a lot of just reaching out. I don't know how else.
Well, I'll just jump in with, as an ally, you have a lot of power. Because as a queer person, for me to say to someone who may be homophobic, hey, you should be accepting of me, it's self-serving in many ways. But you as an ally have the power when you're on okay. Oh, I thought you were saying you're an ally. But still, there are people, and I didn't acknowledge it, people who are watching the live stream, thanks for tuning in, and people who are watching it after this live stream, thank you. But, so let's just say generically, allies have a lot of power, because when someone is saying something homophobic, for example, and an ally checks that person on it, it's a big difference from someone who's queer. So for me, I was homophobic, right? Growing up in Jamaica, I was homophobic. I was homophobic into my young 20s, not knowing I'm gay. power to do as compared to us. Okay, so we have just a few minutes. I know we're gonna go over, can we go over by like 6 minutes? Yes? Okay, thank you. So we want to have, everybody has a little notebook and a pen. So, and everybody got that QR code. Does the QR code have the booklet on it? And we don't know. What does the QR code have? It has a booklet. Does it also have the prompts or no? Okay, so I'll read off the prompts. And so the first one is, in an inclusive Caribbean space, I would feel, and you just write whatever you'd like to write after that. So write in prompts. In an inclusive Caribbean space, I would feel, another one, the first step we can take toward building a more inclusive Caribbean community is, so you can write to any of these. As a queer Caribbean person, I'm passionate about, and then one very broad, I feel a sense of belonging when. So just take like 60 seconds to respond to any of those prompts. In an inclusive Caribbean space, I would feel, the first step we can take toward building a more inclusive Caribbean community is, as a queer Caribbean person, I'm passionate about, I feel a sense of belonging when. We'll just sit in silence. We'll just take 30 more seconds, and then we'll ask if anybody would like to share what they wrote. Okay, let's see if we get, who would like to share? Okay. Who'd like to share? Let's get it there. As a queer Caribbean person, I am passionate about other queer Caribbeans and Africans. Okay, thank you. Okay, someone else back here. Oh, you good? Yeah? Okay.
So in an inclusive Caribbean space, I would feel accepted, but loved, welcomed, unafraid.
And then, no, who's okay right here? As a queer Caribbean person, I'm passionate about equity and accessibility for all. Anybody else back here want to read? Okay, yeah. No? Okay, that look was like, you want to, okay. Jose?
I would feel full, meaning like full with art, food, because you never go hungry in a Caribbean house.
Right, some rice and peas, jerk chicken, maduros. Okay, so we're going to give you the opportunity for some final remarks, and then I'm going to bring up the president of the Island Space Caribbean Museum and co-founder for me. But let's thank this panelist for us. Let's spend their time. Let's thank the audience for coming out. Thank you all. And we have dancer Brianna. Some of y'all came late. You missed Brianna, but you can go back and watch it on the video. She did a profound piece. And who remembers what's the name of that song in Creole? Who can say it? No? Tell us the name of the song. You too say moon. You too say moon. Okay. So let me give you the opportunity for any final remarks before we end.
Yes, I mean, for those of you who are here, be unapologetic about who you are. You were created perfect, whole, and complete. And if you can be that example for someone else that is struggling, that is the biggest medicine that you can give them. So let us continue to love each other completely and fully.
Thank you. Dr. Charlene Désir.
for those sentiments. When you leave here, whatever you've gotten from here, take it into your own spaces, see how you can expand on that, and just be a safe person for somebody. There are a lot of parents here, there are a couple parents here. That's, I think, what's gonna keep that connection with you and your child, build that connection. Like, be a safe place, be a safe space for this person, for somebody. And I think that's what I think.
Thank you, Jonielle McIntosh, all the way from Kishi, Jamaica. Kishi.
Thank you all for being here. I'm very proud to be Caribbean. I'm very proud to be LGBT. And I don't feel just connected to Jamaica or even the Jamaican diaspora. My dad is a Jamaican in the UK. But I feel a connection to the whole of the Caribbean. You know, I love my Bajans, I love Haitians, I love Trinidadians, I love Guyanese, I love Puerto Ricans. I love all of us. But I think it's very important to understand that our very existence is often a challenge to many strong, lasting beliefs, and it's very important for us to know our rights. It's very important for us to know our value, to know our worth, and to understand that through all of it, you must always take care of yourself. And it costs nothing to be kind to each other. So, like, if we can be kinder to each other, that's really important. But also, if somebody voted for Trump, it's okay to not talk to them. Love you.
Thank you, Kishi. Thank you. And so you all have those QR codes. That's for the program booklet. Their bios are in there. Their email, their contact information is in there. Please follow everyone. And for us, our Instagram is BLINC, BLINC.love. Please follow us. Please follow Island Space. I also want to make sure we acknowledge Nadine in the back, who did this delicious food. Thank you, Nadine. And our funders, the Community Foundation of Broward, the Our Fund Foundation, and I believe what's the name of the, okay, she's gonna do that, great, to make sure we acknowledge everybody. Oh, thank you so much, will it be a part two? That's a great person, but we're gonna have programming here back in March, so make sure you follow us, and you'll also, and you get information like as it comes up, right? But you can save the date for March 13th, it's gonna be an art exhibition. Won't be the same as we have today, but we're going to continue having spaces, and we'll always have more talks.
Also, just want to say I would love to see the ballroom community
Okay,
and the Caribbean community, because we're there, we're in there. I would like to see it.
Trust,
That would be a
there is a whole community in Jamaica.
Yeah, and so some folks here, this is their first time at the Island Space Caribbean Museum, first time? Okay, so come back here and bring your friends and tell your friends about it. Post about this event. Tag BLINC.love, tag Island Space. Okay, Khalid Thompson, president and co-founder of Island Space Caribbean Museum.
Live streaming this evening as well. All right, hi, good evening, everyone. Oh, yes, I'm not going to forget. Please, you got some surveys at the very beginning. Please do take a moment to just fill them out. It helps us to kind of understand how you learn about the museum, what else you want to see here, etc. So thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Khalid Thompson. I am the co-founder of Island Space Caribbean Museum, along with G's ex-husband, David. We are both very free-spirited, open-minded people. And I shared with G that I guess I'm what you call an ally. But I am a little bit disappointed that there even needs to be such a word, because people should just be people. Why do we're all friends. It's a little disappointing that there has to be even a concept of allyship. But since there is, we're going to go ahead and accept it. I will brag a little bit and say the first time that BLINC did any event, it was at Island Space. And it was in our first, this is our second location inside of Broward Mall. We were over at the Red Robin location up to a year and change ago. And yeah, we were very proud, because I will tell you, I personally got into it with a few people on our board. I don't know if I should say while we're recording, but I got into it with a few people who wanted to not have, this group of people inside of the museum, and we created the space. When you have something called Island Space and everybody from the Caribbean is supposed to be welcome, we're not gonna go and say, oh, well, you're welcome, but you're not welcome now suddenly because of something else. Again, we are just all friends, we're all people, so for me, it is disappointing that we even have to have these conversations, but if we're going to have them, we want to have them here, and everyone is welcome inside of Island Space, regardless of what's on about ability and whatever our differences are. This space is meant to welcome everyone inside. We hope you got that feeling from this evening's activity. We hope you keep coming back to Island Space with that in mind. If you would like to host events at the museum, definitely if you want to do something in the LGBTQ space, talk to BLINC about it because they're our consistent partner. If you want to do something on your own, you can talk to Mandy over here, that's our museum manager. Stephanie over here is our programming coordinator. It is because of Stephanie that you see the room is set up like this all the time. And I'm going to say she co-curated this spectacular art show. I didn't even tell her how spectacular it looked when I came here today, because it was running up and down. But it looks amazing. As G said, every 2 to 4 months we have a different show in here. Typically now curated by Stephanie. Congratulations, you're amazing. With that. And so in January it's going to be the reggae stuff ahead of Reggae Genealogy. Please make sure you take a flyer before you go. That's our annual reggae concert. It's amazing. And then it's the BLINC art exhibit and event series. So again, just keep coming back. If you have not looked through the exhibit hall behind this white wall here, please do. The history of the Caribbean region is back there. It's free while you're here this evening, but when you come back, it's $15 or $7 for your children, for the little ones.
Sorry, just jump in to make sure we want to acknowledge Stephanie and Mandy. And you so good to work with y'all. You guys reached out to us and so organized and just welcoming us this way. We really appreciate it. Look forward to more. But we want to make sure acknowledge.
Always. But I do want to say, and we should have done this at the beginning, and next time we need to remember to do it at the beginning. This event is presented in partnership and made possible by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, that is a national, as a federal grant. People ask all the time, how you keep this place going? It is a lot of grant writing. She is learning now because she's executive director. It's a lot of grant writing. It's a lot of asking for donations. We don't use the term begging. We solicit, we fundraise, we don't beg, because the work we're doing is important. And so typically we would pass a little bucket around this evening. If you would like to donate to the bucket, we're going to ask you to go ahead and do it, but we're not pushing the bucket this evening. But it does take a lot of support from our community, from outside of our community. Let me finish thanking the people before I digress. And the following funds at the Community Foundation of Broward: Judith Kornfeld Fund for the Arts, Helen and Frank Stoikov Charitable Endowment Fund, the Frederick A. DeLuca Foundation, Broward County Fund, and Samuel F. Morrison Community Impact Fund. And I know our fund consistently helps with everything that BLINC does, and hopefully with the thing that we're doing next year as well. So I will stop talking now, but please follow Island Space, tag us, keep coming back, volunteer if you'd like to. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.